Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? Welcome to episode 50, Secrets to Relationship Success Everyone Needs to Know. Reading our review of the week by Jessica. Amanda's podcasts inspire me to live a more fulfilling life. Thank you, Jessica. I invite you to please leave a review on iTunes or whatever podcast you use, as it will help us reach and inspire even more people. In this episode, we'll be talking about what the unknown secrets to relationship success everyone needs to know. What happens when your partner and you have different ideas around sex? You might want it 3 times a day, and they only want it once a week. What happens if you love a clean home and your partner doesn't? What to do when your partner constantly does something that truly makes you crazy? How to truly accept and love one another? And how to pick the right partner from the get-go. Arielle Ford has spent the past 25 years living and promoting consciousness through all forms of media. She is the author of the international bestseller, The Soulmate Secret. Manifest the love of your life with the law of attraction. She's also the author of Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate, offers a groundbreaking shift in perception, showing couples how to have a deeper, more loving, and more fulfilling relationship. Her most recent release is a transformational coloring book, Inspirations, Love by Design, Coloring the Divine Path to Manifest Your Soulmate. Arielle has been called the Cupid of Consciousness and the Fairy Godmother of Love. She lives in La Jolla, California, with her husband, soulmate, Brian Hilliard, and their feline friends. I am so delighted to have Arielle Ford, amazing love and relationship expert, author of Soulmate Secret and Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate. Arielle, thank you for being here today.
Oh, I'm excited to be talking to you, Amanda.
Oh, I'm so excited. And Arielle and I were just chatting. She's in La Jolla, where my husband is from, and we spent many years. And we're happy now to be in Ireland. La Jolla is beautiful as well. And then Arielle was just sharing with me, she was teaching a course over here in Ireland. And do you want to share, Arielle?
Yeah, I did my weekend workshops called The Soulmate Secret, and I taught in Dublin. I guess it was about 6 or 7 years ago. And I had an older gentleman in the course. He was in his 80s. And within a year, he met and married his soulmate after doing the course and sent me pictures of his wedding and was happily, living his life with his beloved.
Oh, well, thank you. That's so amazing, the work that you do, because, we're just like wired to have love, and, it's like one of our soul purposes. So I'm so excited to have you here. And my first thing is, what got you into this field of supporting people with the heart and love?
Yeah, it was not on my to-do list. What happened was, I woke up really early one morning when I was 43 years old, and I was just sort of lying in bed, and I had this thought, which was, oh my God, I forgot to get married. And I started thinking about, how did I get to be 43 and never married? And what I realized was that I had been focusing all of my time and energy on building my business and building my career. And I had built a very, very successful public relations firm representing spiritual and self-help and personal growth authors. Like, over the course of the years, I worked with Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, Don Miguel Ruiz, Neil Donald Walsh, Gary Zukav. Everybody in the field had been my client. And I had used the law of attraction to really build my business. So I thought, well, what if I see if that works for my love life? And I created a program for myself to use the law of attraction to attract love. And within 6 months, I manifested the most amazing guy that exceeded all my expectations. And that was 22 years ago now.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, we met. And 3 weeks after we met, we got engaged. And a year later, we had 3 weddings. And then all of a sudden, every single woman over 40 that I met started asking me, well, how do I get a Brian? How do I find my soulmate? So I started sharing my program with other people, and then it became a book, and then the book became an international bestseller. And then I started getting invited to speak and teach workshops, and eventually it morphed into a career. But what happened after I got married, which I didn't expect because my goal was to find my soulmate, right? What I didn't know at the time, Amanda, was that finding the soulmate is actually the easy part. Learning to live with them, now that takes a lot of work. So I discovered I had no partnership skills at all because, by the time I was married, I was 44. I'd always lived alone. And I needed to become a student of love to really understand, well, yeah, I got the soulmate, but how do we live harmoniously together? So I really started studying what all the research that's been done by the world's leading marriage experts. And that all turned into my second book, which was Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate. So that's the short version of the evolution of how I went from the publishing industry to the love industry.
And I love the way you're just sharing your experiences with us. Obviously your wisdom and many the science and everything behind it, but really is like you found these tools, you created your own course. It was very successful, and then you shared it with the world, and now that was the next step. So it'll be interesting what will be the next step, and I just love everything that you support with. And I think, yes, finding your soulmate is vital, but of course, I'm 16 years married with my husband, so I love going deep into unknown secrets to every relationship. That is one of your titles, and I would love to hear all about that.
Yes, sure. So the biggest secret that most people don't know about marriage, and this was shocking when I discovered it, there's a man named Dr. John Gottman who is at the University of Washington in Seattle, and he's been studying married couples for 50 years. He's really considered the world's leading expert on marriage. And what he found is that every single couple, not just some, but all couples have a minimum of 9 irreconcilable differences. So these are things on which you are never, ever, 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 ever going to agree. So it's things like, in a lot of couples, you have a spender and a saver. You have one person who's an early bird, one who's a night owl.
Sorry,
one
this
wants
is
it
perfect.
hot, one wants it cold. One person's always on time, the other one's always late. One person's really laid back and chill, the other one's got a fiery temper. One wants sex 3 times a day, one wants it once a month. One's a neat-nick perfectionist, one's a slob. Any of this sounding familiar?
Oh my gosh, I'm cracking up because
and that's not all of them. One person's very shy and introverted, the other one's a social butterfly. One's a planner, the other one's spontaneous. But the thing is, what happens is we get married and we think that we need to change our partner because they're so different from us. And the truth is, you can't change anybody else, but B, that's sort of the real purpose of marriage, is to not learn how to change somebody, but to love and respect them and then come up with creative solutions for the differences. So we're not talking about compromise. We're talking about an actual creative solution. And if you want, I'll give you an example from my life.
Yeah, I'd love it.
So when Brian and I got together, we were both had good careers. We were making money, and then we started a business together. So lack of money was not our issue. What our issue was how we spent the money. He grew up in a very wealthy family, and I grew up in a relatively lower middle class family where every single day my parents had screaming matches over money, that there was never enough. So I grew up thinking, well, I'm going to make money, but I'm never going to spend it. I'm never going to fear not having money again. And he grew up never worrying about money. There was always more than enough. So now we're married, and we have the joint account, and I'm seeing how he spends $75 on a bottle of wine or $1,000 on a raincoat. And I've never paid retail for anything. And when I go to a store, I look for the biggest bargain. And I'm so uncomfortable with how the money's getting spent. And I don't really understand why. I just know it's creating a lot of judgment on my part. Like, how could he do this? And I finally realized that I was suffering from what I now call poverty consciousness. And that, I needed to work on that aspect of myself because, like I said, lack of money wasn't the issue. It was my whole attitude towards it. So this required that I get really honest and vulnerable with him and tell him about my childhood and tell him about my money fears. And it was actually generational. My grandmother lived with us for a while, and she had grown up during the Depression where sometimes they didn't have enough to eat. So it was like in my DNA, this fear that I had. And so eventually we came up with a creative solution. We came up with 3 bank accounts. There was my money, his money, and our joint money. And we didn't police each other on the personal accounts, but on the joint account, the agreement was nobody spends more than $500 without permission from the other. And so that gave me a sense of safety and security. And Brian was able to understand what my fears and triggers were. And, over the 22 years we've been together, I've continuously worked on this. And it's much better. I would say I'm 90% better. And the truth is, sometimes I still get triggered. But now I'm responsible for when I'm triggered. And I have a spiritual toolkit, I call it, where I'll do EFT tapping, or I'll do a heart lock-in, or I'll go for a walk, where I talk through my irrational fears and my limiting beliefs, because that's my stuff. So that's just one example of what you can do to have creative solutions to the differences that all couples have.
I love that. And, there's a reason why there's like yin and yang, or the saying opposites attract, and, I'm sure you really believe this, but it's like we come in, to teach each other things, so, and I suppose with that amazing sharing with you and your husband, like, I think that works on both sides, like him, like you working on, okay, this poverty and living more in abundance, but him also, I think, also like honoring, well, it doesn't have to be the $1,000 raincoat. Maybe I could start looking at the $500, like.
Oh, no, he doesn't have to change the type of rain, because what I learned from him was that, if you buy something that's really high quality, that costs a lot more, it lasts a lot longer. So I was never looking at, amortizing the cost of something, as opposed to just trying to buy it because it was functional. It was the cheapest thing available, and then he grew up in a home where his mother was a real clean freak, perfectionist, neatnik. And I'm the messy, sloppy one in the family, so he's had to, sort of come up with the mindset that, he's living with a slob.
And he's got a goddess.
Right. So he decided early on in our relationship that one of his jobs in the relationship is to clean up after me, as opposed to trying to turn me into something I'm not.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, because I would definitely say with me and my husband, I mean, it's not like I am Miss Perfectionist around the house by any means, but like that would be more important to me. He'd be more like, let's chill, let's just leave the dishes in the sink for a day or two. And I'll be like, no, that's too hard, And I think a solution that we came up with is, okay, let's just get some help, somebody in to help us around the house.
Well, that's the smartest thing to do, especially if there's a job nobody wants to do. And for people who can't afford help, one of the great solutions is that you just make a list of what the chores are. And if there's some that you prefer over others, you take those. And if there's a chore nobody wants, then you alternate weeks of whose job it is to do it. And you just make it fair.
I love that. And I love really, Ariel, like how simple you're making it all sound. It's just like, if this is it, there's a simple solution here. And it just sounds like as long as you're both in a place of being open and respectful and loving for each other, it's like, let's find a way to resolve this. We really love each other. We really love a lot about our relationship. And there may be these 9 things, like minimum 9 things.
Right.
And how do we work around them?
That's really what it is, because, so many people are getting divorced because they're arguing over stupid things, and they think it's an indication that they're not meant to be together, and that if they just found the right person, the person who's going to race them to the kitchen to wash the dishes, that then they'll be happy. But the truth is, what's really important, and I really want to talk to your single listeners about this, the most important thing is choosing the right person. Okay? And the way you know you have the right person is that you just don't have this hot chemistry. That's actually the least important thing. What you need is to have connection, compatibility, communication, which can be learned. So if you're not a good communicator, being willing to learn how to communicate effectively. And the single most important factor in a successful relationship is having a shared vision for the future. So if you're somebody who wants to have children, you need to know on day one, are they open to having children? And if you're thinking, well, I don't want to scare somebody away. Yes, you do actually want to scare away people that, like if you're someone who has a passport in your back pocket and travel's really important to you, you are not going to be happy with an agoraphobic or somebody who's never been on an airplane or is afraid to fly. Okay, so it's important that as a single person, you know upfront what your must-haves are and what your deal breakers are, so that as you are meeting people, they can be wonderful and you can enjoy them. But, if you're someone who has to live at the beach and they have to live at the mountains, you're going to have an ongoing, insolvable problem.
Yeah. So it's like pick right from the beginning. And when that, like the big things are in alignment with children, maybe travel, just major things, then you can work through the other things like I'm tidy, you're not so much. Like what is your solution for you mentioned, one's tidy, one's not. You mentioned one might like sex 3 times a day, one might like it once a week or a month. So what's your solution there?
That's actually an easy one. So what happens with a lot of women is they're only willing to have sex when they feel like it. And that's, if you really love your partner, you could have sex when you don't feel like it. You could just say, okay, well, let's have a quickie in the laundry room because you care enough about them. So if you're going to count on your feelings to make decisions about what you're going to do, that's an extremely immature place to come from. Okay, so children only do what they want to do when they want to do it. But mature adults make different choices. So, clearly if you're a once a week person and they're a 3 times a day person, you can tell them, well, great, I'm up for twice a week. You can count on me for twice a week and the occasional quickie, and you can take care of yourself the rest of the time. Right? So you just come up with something that works for everybody. But so many times, women try to use sex as a punishment. Oh, well, I didn't get my way, so I'm not going to have sex with you. And that you may need therapy if that's the place you're in. I am not a therapist, but those are deep emotional issues. But for the most part, you can look and see, well, what could be a win-win here, as opposed to compromise, which in some ways everybody loses.
And I love what you're saying, because a lot of it is self-reflection and kind of finding your own, taking care of your own side of the street. Like, as you said, whether it's money stuff, and it's like, oh, what is really my money stuff I've got going on here? And then the next step is like, be willing to be vulnerable. You know what? I'm really sorry, but this is where I'm coming from. Like when I grew up, it was like, you can't spend, and so it's like showing up, checking what's on your side of the fence, being vulnerable, and then looking for a solution. So I love that. And the way you make it sounds, it's so practical, and just there's
Well, what you mentioned the clean freak thing, that you have a kind of thing, you want things clean and neat and orderly.
well, I like a space clean. Yeah, yeah.
And your husband's sort of the messy one.
Yeah, but he might say I'm a bit messy too, but yeah, we'll go with that.
All right. So one of the women in one of my workshops a few years ago stood up in the class, and she said, my name's Stephanie, and I've been married to Garth for 16 years, and I'm a total perfectionist, clean freak, everything in its place, and he's a total messy slob. And she said, it's really getting to the point where I don't know that I can live with him much longer. She said, the only thing that's keeping us together right now is that he has an out-of-state job 2 weeks of every month. So when he's gone, the house is mine and it's pristine. But she said, within hours of him coming home, it's a mess again, and it's just driving me crazy. I don't think there's a solution. So I asked her, I said, well, Stephanie, do you have a dog? And she said, yes. And I said, does your dog shed? And she said, yes. And I said, what do you do when the dog sheds? She said, I vacuum up after him. And I said, do you love your dog? And she got really quiet. And then she said, oh my God, Garth sheds. And she realized in that moment, just like her dog has no control over his shedding, Garth can't help but be a slob. That's just who he is. And it just changed everything for her, because she realized that that's just who he is. So a year later, when I was writing my book, Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate, I was wondering, was that just a momentary aha moment, or did something really shift for her? So I literally had to track her down. I had to call the promoters of the event where I spoke, and I described her. I remembered her name, and finally someone I talked to said, oh yes, I know her. She's my real estate agent. So I got her on the phone. And I said, Stephanie, hi, it's Arielle. I just wanted to check in and see how you and Garth are doing. And she said, oh, we've never been happier. She said, ever since that workshop, we started to get along much better. In fact, he quit his job and started a home-based business so we could be together 24/7.
Wow.
And yes, he's still a slob, but we are so in love and we're so grateful.
That is so amazing. Like, just that shift in consciousness. Oh my, if I would be willing to do this for my dog, like I better be willing to do this for my partner,
Right.
my love.
You would never demand to your dog, okay, Cooper, you must stop shedding or I'm going to leave you. You would never do that. So one of the questions you want to ask yourself when your mate is driving you crazy, which will happen on a regular basis to everybody, is you have to ask yourself, is this a reason not to love them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, if there's abuse or addiction or really bad behavior, then yes, that's a reason to go get professional help and therapy. But if there's no abuse or addiction or bad behavior, it's just stuff you don't like, you can figure it out.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So what are, some of your main, like, turn your mate into your soulmate? So, like, does that mean somebody that is a friend and then you can bring them into a soulmate, or just...
No. So Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate is written for women who are already in a relationship, but they've got one foot out the door. They're starting to think that, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this isn't my soulmate. Maybe the grass is greener somewhere else. Because they don't understand that it's absolutely natural to have conflict and that there are easy solutions to it. So they're dreaming up ways, well, if I had the right partner, then I'd be happier. And I believe that 90% of the time, that's not true. 90% of the time, you can find ways to work it out. But it requires reflection. It requires doing some work on yourself. It does not necessarily require that you sit down with your partner and say, we've got to talk, and start scaring them. But if you have a shift in perception of what's going on, and you take ownership, then when there are the big issues, which there will be, I actually have scripts in the book on how to have those kinds of conversations in a kind, gentle, loving way that will effectively get you what you want.
That's so beautiful, because I probably have my statistics completely wrong, so please correct me, but I think it's like 50% of first-time marriages, I don't know exactly, and you can correct me, are not, they end up in divorce. And then isn't it like 65 of second marriages, 65%, and then it
Yes.
goes up to like 70 something for third. What exactly
Yes.
are they?
Yes, you have it right. So the more marriages you have, the more likely you'll divorce. And the reason for that is because you haven't changed. You think you keep picking the wrong partner, but chances are, if you haven't done any work on yourself, you're as much or more to blame for the failure of the marriage. Now, sometimes we do pick the wrong partner, and sometimes even soulmate relationships have expiration dates. And it's not that anybody cheated on anybody or anybody did anything wrong. It's just over. It's just complete. You got together, you had the kids, you had the life, and now, it's time to move on. That does happen sometimes.
And how do you think somebody would differentiate between, oh, I just need to work on this within myself, or I need to work on this, or yeah, it just might be complete?
That's a long process. So what I recommend people do is read my book, Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate, and give yourself at least 6 months to implement the practices and the processes that I give in the book. And if at the end of 6 months, you don't want to be there, then leave, but at least give yourself a chance. And for those that are sitting out there listening to us thinking, well, why do I have to do all the work? Because you're the saner one at the moment, because you're the one that has the awareness, right? And it is worth putting 6 months into seeing if you can turn your relationship around, if you can reignite it and restart it, as opposed to starting over again from square one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what are 3 things that you consciously do daily in your relationship to keep it really harmonious and balanced?
Well, the first thing I do is I'm constantly looking for ways to acknowledge and appreciate Brian. So Dr. Gottman says you should give your mate 5 appreciations every day. Because what happens, particularly with women, is that we're always looking for what's wrong instead of looking for what's right. So if you've got your attention on looking for what's right, you're going to find it. And then you should share it. And chances are, once you start doing that as a practice, they won't know exactly what's changed, but they'll start doing it too. So that's one of the easiest, fastest things you can do. The second thing is that when stuff does come up and you get triggered or annoyed or pissed off, you don't have to just suppress it and let it fester. You can just go somewhere, get yourself into a neutral space, and then you come back and you just say, hey, is this a good time to talk? I have a problem. I want to talk to you for 5 minutes about my problem. And when they say yes, you can just say, listen, Joe, I know how much you love me. And I know that you would never purposely do anything to hurt me or humiliate me. But when you said ABC, I really felt XYZ. And then you shut up and you don't say another word. Not another word, because give them time to think. And chances are they're going to say, oh, I'm so sorry. I never meant that. What I really meant to say was blank, whatever. And then that's the end of it. Okay, so instead of getting nasty and defensive and going, you always do this or you always do that, or I can't believe you did that, from a place of, hostility and negativity, go calm yourself down and then gently do what we just discussed. And the third thing to remember is your mate never wakes up in the morning, never thinking, how could I really annoy Amanda today? What could I do to completely piss her off and make her crazy? But often we live like people are doing it to us on purpose. So we have to remember that a lot of times it's just inadvertent and they didn't mean it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Because we're myself and my husband are at this stage. We're 16 years together. We've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my 3-year-old's like got a flu, and we just bought a house. My husband's working on it, so we a little bit are like two ships in the night. Just this period of this couple of months, but I would say three main things like is even if we just get to gaze and look into each other's eyes, even if it's just for a couple of minutes a day, like it creates such a strong bond. And then if we can add to that, like just touching each other, whether it's like rubbing his feet, or he's like rubbing my hair, the back of my neck, just like even if there isn't a ton of time, it's like just creating that connection. And there's nothing stronger than like that gazing into each other's eyes, and that touch, that connection of touch. And then I love appreciation, like thank you honey, like for all that you're doing with our new home right now, and or thanks what you're doing with the kids right now, just and it's
Yeah,
just
the thing you might want to add to that is a regular date night.
yeah,
Like every Thursday night, no matter what, the babysitter or the grandparents coming over, and you guys are getting out. Because right now you're in the hardest phase of a relationship when there's small children at home. That's what's the hardest phase of marriage for people, because there's so much pressure and so much, distraction. So if you can come up with a regular date night, that would be a great add-on.
I totally agree. And we go through phases, when we're really good with that. And then it's like, hey, it's been like a few months. So we really need this, So I totally agree. And it's something I need to start implementing again. So thank you for the reminder.
Well, and then take turns planning it, so not both of you don't have to be thinking about it, because I'm sure the last thing you want to do at the end of the day is make one more decision. So just say, listen, you take these 2 Thursdays in February, and I'll take these 2 Thursdays in February, and let's surprise each other. And it could just be, going out for a fast burger, if that's what you like, and then going for a walk in the park. It doesn't have to be an elaborate date.
Absolutely. He loves jiu-jitsu so much, he'd probably have me roll around on the jiu-jitsu mat. So. But it's like, I love that. You both get a chance to organize, arrange these, because then it's, a bit of what you both love, and sharing that organization aspect. I love that.
I have one friend, they've got 2 young children, and once a month, he sends her to a luxury hotel in their neighborhood, where she can have 24 hours all to herself, and he gets her spa treatments, and he's fully responsible for the kids. And because he understands that she does the heavy lifting with the kids, and the cleaning and the driving and the cooking, and he's a relationship coach. So he just talks to women on the phone all day long. So,
yeah.
so one night a month, she has 24 hours of me time, and it's great for them.
Oh, that's amazing. And my husband is incredible like that. And I'm a part of a spa down here. So I mightn't do 24-hour stints, but I'll pick good 4-hour stints at least like once a week or so. So I do agree. These are like such a brilliant, simple, practical, easy to implement, because it's, it's like everything you're discussing. Yeah, it's doing some soul searching, looking at ourselves, reflecting. But like that's just a part of who we want to be. Like we want to be our greatest self. We don't want to be projecting and blaming, because that's just not a fun energy to be in. It is like, it can be hard to work on your own stuff, but it's better to work on it, clear it up, and then able to have harmony, because as you're saying, it's going to keep showing up in other relationships. So like you might as well do the work in this one. And I love that saying, like one of the quickest ways to enlightenment is through relationship.
Yes, I think that's true. Well, Harville Hendrix, who Oprah calls the marriage whisperer, he believes that the true purpose of a soulmate relationship is to kick up all your childhood wounds for healing, and that the soulmate relationship will have really difficult days because it is a healing process. Because I asked him one day, I said, how do you know if you're in the right relationship? And after he stopped laughing, he said to me, you're in the right relationship when it started off as a dream come true, and then sometimes devolves into your worst nightmare.
Gosh, I mean, I love their work, his work. He's amazing. But
Isn't he? I think Harville's really got it figured out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. It's like, and if you're willing to, with my husband, I think like he knows every single flaw, every single weakness, and he loves me for it. Like I knew that when I first met him, was like, oh, he likes this stuff about me. Oh my God. Like, yeah. Like
Yeah.
he's the one, he'll take every part of me, so and what's equally as important is that we are equally as much accepting of them as they are of us.
That's so great.
Thank you so much, like, for sharing your incredible wisdom. I'd love to ask a couple more questions. What are some things that you do every day besides what you do within your relationship with your husband that really, like complement each other? But what are some things that you do just to kind of fill yourself up so you're filled up for the relationship?
Yeah, I believe that women need to consciously become pleasure puppies. And a pleasure puppy who somebody puts having pleasure on their to-do list is the number one item every day. Because when women get stressed out, they deplete their oxytocin levels. And oxytocin is the hormone in your brain that they call the super glue of love. It's your bonding hormone, but stress eats it up. And the way to rebuild oxytocin is by experiencing pleasure. So it can be simple things: getting a manicure, a pedicure, a foot rub, a massage, getting your hair done, doing acts of service, dancing, having drinks with your girlfriend, any kind of creative outlet. Like I like to color every day, which is an oxytocin builder, aromatherapy bath, eating my favorite piece of chocolate, just one piece of chocolate. All of those rebuild oxytocin. So being a pleasure puppy is really important, and I make sure I do that every day. But I don't do the same thing every day. So let's say you do yoga every day. That does not count because that's a good habit. So when you're doing pleasure puppy things, you mix it up. It's something that you would look forward to.
Love that. Yeah. And it's just whatever that is to you, and
yes,
you can be spontaneous if you want. I love that. So filling your own cup up so you come into your relationship not worn out, stressed out, but
right. Exactly.
happy within yourself,
Exactly.
What are some things that you do daily just for your own health and wellness?
Oh, I work out every single day. So I either do my elliptical machine, or I dance, or I walk, or I have this thing called TRX, which is like strength training with your own body weight. So I work out every single day, and I enjoy it. I just, I do anywhere from 20 to 30, sometimes 40 minutes. So not long workouts, but just something to keep myself in shape.
That's wonderful. And would you share something with us that you're getting ready to, I know something new you're launching, creating, that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. I've written 11 books, and all of them have been nonfiction. And I thought I was done writing books. I wanted to be done writing books. And a few months ago, this movie started to appear in my head. So I'm now writing my first novel, and it's both terrifying and intimidating and exciting. And I don't know that I'm ever going to show it to my editor. Like, he doesn't even know I'm doing this. But I'm writing a novel. That's my big project.
Ooh, that's amazing. That's incredible. And I'd love to ask you, how may we be of service to you?
Oh, that's so sweet. Thanks. Well, I really like to help people find love, keep love, and be love. So I have a free weekly newsletter that you can sign up for at my website, soulmatesecret.com. And on there, I have all kinds of free goodies. In fact, there's a tab called Free Stuff that you can look at. And then I also have a 75-minute free seminar for single women that covers all kinds of cool stuff, like why conscious women struggle finding love, and the fastest ways to release limiting love beliefs, and how to unblock your heart to become magnetic to love. And that's at soulmatepassion44.com, soulmatepassion44.com. So I love to share that stuff, because the one thing that I really know for sure is that as human beings, we were not meant to spend our lives alone, and that there's more than enough love in the world for everybody. I know some people think, oh, you only get one big love in a lifetime and then it's over, and that's just not true. There's more than enough love out there for everybody of every age, of every body type, every size, every income level. There's no shortage of love. But a lot of times we have blocks in the way, thoughts like I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too damaged, all the good ones are taken. And if you go to this free 75-minute seminar, we'll wipe out all that negativity.
That's amazing, Arielle. Like, to all our listeners out there, I hope you have received some amazing, amazing nuggets from Arielle here. You are amazing. And your voice is just the vibration of love. Like, it's just, the second I hear it when you talk, it's like my heart just blasts wide open.
Oh,
so yeah, you are that. So, and you share it and you teach about it and write about it. And so thank you so much. Like, it was an honor getting to chat with you.
thank you, Amanda. And good for you for spreading the word in the world, because people need to hear this information, and you're a portal for that. So mazel tov.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Now I would love to hear from you. What are some of the things you found to be super supportive in your relationship that create even more love and harmony? By you sharing your story might be just what somebody else needs to hear to make a big shift in their relationship. Each month, I leave free new moon meditations. Head over to amandacollins.com. There you'll find the registration link. If you would like to be the next review that I read, please head over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. I would be so, so grateful. If there's someone in your life that you feel could benefit from this episode, please share it with them now. And another thing, please feel free to reach out to me and tell me who else you'd like me to interview on this show. Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to amandacollins.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Collins podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacollins.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm sending love and joy your way.